Hello, 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 hello. It's good to see you. Say hello.
Welcome to the Huskies Hockey Podcast, July edition, July 2026. Andrew, your co-host here, joined as always by, I call him Travis, but most people know him as Weldie. Weldie's in St. Cloud. I'm in the balmy climate of Arizona right now. So a couple of notches above 100 degrees at this point where I'm at. I don't know how it is in Minnesota, but how you been?
We have had a couple of stretches in like 90s. I think we almost broke 100 not too long ago. It was absolutely disgusting. I was down in Iowa for like a mini family reunion down at Okoboji, which apparently is a hoppin' bachelorette party place. Like Okoboji is like the Riviera of Iowa, I guess. So, which I mean, it actually was pretty nice. It had a little water park attached to the hotel that we stayed at, so the kids got a lot swimming done, and it was pretty good. They're not quite at the age where we can just let them roam free, but I think in like a year or two, I'm going to have a little bit of a longer leash on them. But yeah, it's now I think we're starting to break. I think we're going to get some rain here, so it's my lawn is quite dry, and I'm not going to water it. So we need all the water for the data centers. So
it's similar here. Lots of heat and not much water. This is monsoon season, technically speaking, in this specific area of the Southwest. Maybe a bit of a misnomer. When it rains, it pours. So it is a thing.
Is that where the saying comes from?
We haven't been getting much of it.
Comes from monsoon season
so far. This has been, in terms of the hockey front, we're talking about warm weather. It might not be the best segue to talking about ice hockey, but from St. Cloud State's perspective, the news just keeps churning out. The script writers have been keeping busy and keeping us fans on our toes.
I was just thinking too, is because what we promised, like a Mount Rushmore episode. I promised Alex Fern that I'd have an episode and maybe like do a from the booth, kind of him talking about USHL. Like I thought we would have less news to talk about for Husky hockey throughout the off season. And then, I mean, new coach, new coaching staff, that'll throw a wrinkle into everything. So apologies for the people who are waited with bated breath for those episodes. We'll get something on the books there, Alex, I promise.
Yeah, the Mount Rushmore bit is a good one, and we definitely need to return to that. We've still got an August show to plan, so perhaps we would think, because what we're going to talk about seems like the rosters for both the men's and the women's Huskies teams are set. 90% plus chance that what we've got in place right now, at least on our back of the napkin math, is going to be what's going to be hitting the ice for the teams this fall. We'll talk about both the men's and women's rosters taking final shape. And yeah, this is so just to introduce and to level set. If you are a new listener, we always like to expand our listenership. This is a cool show because it's basically two shows in one. We cover both the men's and the women's St. Cloud State Huskies hockey teams here. And we try to be as complete as possible. Last show, we did a deep dive on what we're thinking is the men's roster. We knew that there was going to be there were still at that point a couple of open spots. Since that last show, we think that those spots have been filled and the men's roster looks about complete. This week, or this month, I should say, we're going to do the same with the women's roster as that's taken shape. I did a deep dive to prepare for this show, and I've got 26 players on roster, which if they have entered the house settlement or not, which does hard cap the roster at 26. I still haven't gotten like 100% confirmation that they have done that. But if they're at 26, that might be it. They might be mandated to be capped at that. And even if not, there was just not much more room for too many other additions. So I think that what we've got for both men's and the women's rosters are what we're going to see this fall. But before we get into those last couple of men's recruits, big piece of news just dropped. It's like fresh off the pan, right out of the oven.
Before we get to that, I just want to say, Andrew, again, you did most of the work for this episode, and filling out the rosters.
My back's getting sore.
You're carrying this, so you're going to be hosting. So I just wanted to make sure I did get an extra drink for me, because I've been. Last time I was a little bit light later on, so I've got a modified George Thorogood going over here.
One bourbon.
Instead of a bourbon, I have a martini, an espresso martini.
That's not a modified Thorogood. That's not like saying instead of one bourbon, I got one rye. No, you went pretty much the other side, the other category of alcohol.
I got two out of the three because I also have a scotch and a beer. So. Okay. I'm calling it audible.
That's a meal there for you today. Yeah, that's dinner.
It kind of is. I mean, I did have JJ Garden, which I love already, but one martini, one scotch, and one beer is what I got. I'll probably go in that order.
Wasn't that the name of our April podcast? I think that rings a bell.
Oh, something like that.
When you talked about your recent, because this martini thing is only somewhat recent, correct?
Yeah, that though was straight dry martini. So this, I made a freezer door espresso martini, so it's just in the freezer for me. So I just decided, I'm gonna pop it off and kind of go for it. I think I made it with a little bit too much espresso. Like it's very coffee forward, or I don't like espresso martinis and I love coffee. I don't know. Maybe that's the case, but
it's actually got actual espresso. So you're going to be up until 4:00 in the morning.
I might be. And I slept terribly last night. So this is not a good.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that's helping.
Hindsight's 20/20.
That doesn't help.
I'm already a couple sips in. I've gone too deep.
Yeah, if that doesn't do the trick, then I'm sure the scotch and the beer will
Yep, exactly. In. But I wanted to also say a little bit earlier, and then I forgot to bring it up. So maybe I'll edit this in back where it should be. I probably won't. But I wonder, I play old timer hockey at the MAC on Wednesdays. And when I first started, Euro introduced me to the guys. It's like, you got to be accepted into this. It's not like open hockey. You can't just bring whoever you want. I made the mistake once. I got yelled at, but whatever. But it was a kind of a situation where, I'm there and, I'm trying to introduce myself as people know me as Weldie. I'm going to call myself as Weldie. And then, all these guys are like, what's your name? And so I'm like, Travis. So and then I'm kind of going, man, I'm in my 40s. Can I still call I didn't give myself the nickname, but I can't call it by that. But I don't know. Maybe my online, I don't know. I still kind of inner self, my inner id, if we want to get Freud about it, is still struggling with whether or not I should be Travis or Weldie.
I think Weldie is a nickname that ages well. You don't age out of, it's not like Chucky or something that sounds like you're 12 years old.
Sure.
So I think that's one that you can take with you at this stage in your life.
Maybe I just need to go call me Weldie. Maybe that's how I got to go about it.
Like Moby Dick, call me Ishmael, call me Weldie.
There we go.
That's the first line of the novel about you. How about the novel about...
It was the best of podcasts. It was the worst of podcasts. I think that could be...
More so the latter when it comes to us. buckle up.
It is a truth universally acknowledged. Now we're just going into classic.
You get 2 podcasts for the price of 1. That price of podcast is $0, by the way.
I did find it interesting. Our stats for listenership over the summer are actually, a lot better than during the season. I don't know if it's renewed interest or if it's.
I haven't checked out those numbers, but I would guess that it's the Oliver bump. I think that's what's generating,
or maybe our podcast, and we kind of struggle with that too during the season. They get a little bit samey, talking about the games and whatnot. Maybe we can do something. If you guys have any thoughts how we can spruce it up, let me know.
Yeah, for the in-season we're years past like needing advice to revitalize this show to put some.
We've gone too far.
We plateaued, but that's why you keep coming back. All 12 of you, Dan Jacobson, who's not even a St. Cloud fan. That's the reach of our show. 1/8 of our listenership doesn't even care about the Huskies.
And 1/8. Also, it's like I know there's a lot of things we could do to actually, if we wanted to expand and grow this, but a lot of it I don't want to. But I have thought about merch. I don't know. I don't know if anyone would buy merch, but I was thinking some of our bit, like a 9 times merch, or a tradition. I don't know. We can put that on a mug with your cloud coverage. With your Substack on it.
Do the probability matrix.
Ooh, God! If they still had the Wisconsin rule,
well, it lives on here in this show.
We could come up with some kind of nice Wisconsin rule update mug and just make fun of everything. So.
The one thing that doesn't seem like it would be too much to do to improve the show, just to do 2 literal podcasts, to split the men's and the women's shows, because we do get over 2 hours most shows, mm-hmm. and you've got to factor in that you're basically getting 2 shows. So because I think a lot of people are scared off they see 2 hours and 24 minutes on a podcast titled 1 martini, 2 shots, and 1 beer. And they're like, pass. But if it's more on the hour range, maybe they'd be more apt to listen. But again, good marketing ideas. This show is where those good ideas go to die. So we're just going to babble.
We don't have the billboard at Gritty St. Cloud anymore.
We've lost. Yeah, that's all me. That's not you. Part of the back hurting from carrying the show also is me pulling muscles by losing sponsors, and I don't need you to rub it in.
I'm sorry about that.
But R.I.P. Gritty St. Cloud. Sorry that we
lose a Gritty St. Cloud, but we gain a Spencer Meier.
There's a segue, if I've ever seen one. A name that should be familiar to most Huskies fans listening to the show, because Meier's. It wasn't too long ago that we were talking about Meier, the player, on St. Cloud, on the Huskies teams. Meier, the captain, in his last 2 seasons. He was a multi-season captain, and 27 years old. He's been working out in Sartell on their coaching staff, the high school level, the last few years. He's a name that we have thrown out there from time to time, even this offseason, since Oliver's taken over the job. And when we knew about the Eric Rude situation, when he was leaving to go to Anchorage, having a vacancy open, we threw out Spencer Meier's name there. Not that necessarily we had a birdie telling us that. It's just it's not a.
It just made sense.
It's not a leap. It just sounds natural. He's a player even during his playing days that you just got the sense that this guy is probably going to have a career in coaching after his playing days are done. Huge character guy. I mean, that last season of his, the 22-23 season. I mean, if he was 50% healthy that year, I'd be surprised. I mean, he missed a chunk of it. But even when he came back from injury, I don't think he ever was close to 100%. But we're talking Gritty St. Cloud, not a joke here when we talk about Spencer Meier. The grit, the determination, the will, the leadership that I think the whole team fed off of. he was a big part of those early 2020 teams and their success going to tournaments 3 years in a row with him in a major leadership role. I think it's a great hire for Nick Oliver to add him to staff. And it's presumed, I don't know if the school has made this official yet, but it's presumed that he's replacing Enga. Now, I don't know if that's replacing Enga in Enga's title as, associate head coach or assistant head coach, whatever Enga's literal title was. Enga was essentially number 2 under Larson. He had been there longer than Rude had, the other kind of main assistant under Larson. So I don't know if that's a 1-for-1 switch on the level of his input. Probably not. Joe Howe, former coach at the head coach at the D1 level, was hired just last month, 2 months ago. He would presume to be that number 2 assistant coach under Oliver. But whatever his actual title is, he's going to be, I think, an important member of this coaching staff. And someone, again, 27 years old, pretty close to, Jack Ryman is going to be your oldest player on roster 24. The gap between the oldest players and the youngest coach is very, very slim. And I think that's a benefit. I think the players, they can easily relate to a guy like Meier. I mean, all the coaching staff, I tweeted this out, all 4 of these, the main coaching staff, because we've got volunteers, goalie assistant coaches, video coaches, whatnot. But the main 4, Oliver, Howe, Meier, and Clark Kuster, who still remains on staff, average age of those 4 gentlemen, 32 and change. That's the average age. So I would presume that's the youngest coaching staff in D1. Check me if I'm wrong, but I can't imagine there's a younger staff assembled currently. And I love it. I mean, it's the transition from Larson. It might be bumpy this year. It's such a wild card how this team's going to play out, just with all the turnover, not only on the roster, but obviously the entire coaching staff now. Other than Kuster, he's the one holdover. But we've got so much new blood. It's just an entirely new product that we're going to get to know here. But it's exciting. If we're gonna do some wholesale changes, just let's clean the whole slate and let's start fresh. And I think the idea of having basically a brand new roster coached by a new staff, that's a young staff that's ready and willing and eager to gain a reputation as coaches at this level. I'm excited with this hire, and especially how he's going to fit into this staff in particular, and just the makeup of how young the staff is. What are your thoughts initially, just with Meier obviously taking the headline here, but as he fits into the staff as a whole?
Yeah, I think I look at it as a huge benefit as well. Now there's a couple things with, experience is obviously going to big thing that, that the staff is going to be lacking. And I think that's okay for what we want to build. Because I feel that just with the way this next generation is kind of coming up, you need to handle it a different way. Like, I don't feel like the old rough my way or the highway works anymore, not only from the psyche of that type of player, but also from the fact that now transferring is just so prevalent that you can just get up and go. So you really have to, relate to these players in a special way. And I think having a young staff can definitely do that. One of the podcasts I listened to, because, throughout this off season, I've actually listened to quite a few podcasts. Oliver has done a couple of podcasts. He did one for CHN. He did one for Youth Hockey Hub, which, also kind of makes me think about my podcast as well, oddly, because I don't think Oliver is kind of soft-spoken at times, when it comes to just how he enunciates and everything. So sometimes I have to what did he say? Or sometimes if I'm listening in the car and the kids are in the back, I'm I can't really anyway, but I was just listening to that, and I'll also listen to Brett and how he's talking about, how, the U of M coaching job and position kind of came to be. But it was really interesting, and listen to one of Brett's talks. He was talking about, just before the championship game, when he gave his pregame speech, or, his like night before, like at the dinner before, he was talking about it. And he said how he got maybe a little bit too sentimental about how much this team meant to him, and kind of, maybe that affected the play of the next, of the game, and how that started out, and how, he would approach that differently if he got that opportunity the next time. So some of those instances of like, hey, you got to have to trial and learn. Now, Oliver has had quite a bit of experience that too, when he's had, some championship game experience, even though at the assistant level, he still has that, definitely that experience. Now it's going to be his first time calling the shots, but I'm just excited to see him and the staff and everybody around him really relate to these players. And again, that, you keep them, you got to keep them excited, you got to keep them engaged. And, that's just kind of the nature of the portal. And I think having somebody, not only that, but as incredibly young as Spencer Meier too, I think that's just kind of another quiver. Where you can really relate to these players in kind of a special way that, some of the old guard, hasn't, or, because I feel like that's what one of the things like Motzko at the U, that one of the things that, they kind of notched against him was the fact that, he was a little bit more of a, ruled with an iron fist type of a coach. And that's how it was back in the old days. So it's, Meier, like you said, heck of a player, heck of a captain. I do wonder if he would still be playing pro, if it wasn't for his injuries. I mean, because even his senior year, he had some really bad back injuries, and they tried to keep it under wraps the best they could, but you can kind of see that being suffered in his play. But it's, just somebody who can really relate and just knows what it would be like to take that next step and really get the most out of these players. Obviously don't know them personally or anything like that, but like we said earlier in this summer, like it just seemed like it was a natural fit. Again, an alum, a lot of alums, again, St. Cloud State coaching ranks. It's kind of a machine that kind of churns over. So overall, I love how the staff has kind of put everything together, and I'm, excited for the season. Like you said, I think there's going to be a lot of bumps. I think there's going to be a lot of hiccups here, but for what this is, what I think we're building here, I am really excited for the next, 3, 4, 5 seasons.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I did fact check this. He was a 3-year captain from the 2020-2021 season through the 2022-2023 season.
Was he alternate captain, or did he?
Elite Prospects lists him as the only captain, the only C wearer of those years. Now, there's one other player in the D1 era that wore the C 3 seasons. 2 of those seasons, he had players also wear C's, but he wore a C in 3 seasons. Also defense, and relatively recently.
Also a coach?
No.
Oh, really?
I thought
it was Reboyne.
Still playing professionally.
Oh, I thought it was Reboyne.
Reboyne was a 2-year captain.
Okay. He must have wore an A then his sophomore year.
He did, yes.
Okay. So that's okay. Jensen
only wore an A his senior or his last season. I think he was a junior.
Oh, really?
Last season. Yeah, never wore a C.
Not Boer. No, you said still playing.
Don't
right?
go back that far.
Okay.
Still playing professionally, AHL.
Okay, is it Prochnow?
Nope. Prochnow wore an A in his last season, 14-15.
Man, am I still too far back?
Yes.
Geez, I got to go like really recent then.
He has played 9 NHL games in his career. He's currently 31. So he'd be like an average member of this coaching staff if he were a coach, but he's still playing.
Right? So
you're going to kick yourself.
I probably will, especially a 3-year captain.
Again, I was unsure if Meier was third year because they are so rare. I would not have thought that this guy wore 3 straight years.
I mean, I'm struggling because if like, did they play with Meier?
Yes, I think
because like I'm thinking maybe. No, okay. You said just a couple of games. Ashan?
No, you're getting really hot. You're right. So Ashan was captain the season after this guy. So 16-17 through the 18-19 season.
16-17. Oh, Schulte.
Jimmy Schulte.
There we go.
Surprising it took you that long for that one.
Yeah.
I figured he'd be like top of mind for you. That first year of his co-captain.
First off, did I have a bad guess? Like I don't
really
think I had a bad guess.
You were nailing guys that were either captains or assistant captains. They weren't bad guesses, but I figured that Schulte would have came to mind a little sooner. Yeah, co-captain in that first year, 16-17 with Ben Storm.
Oh my God.
And in 17-18, co-captain with Judd Peterson. And then he was all alone among the Sea Wearers in the 18-19 season. So, and like I said, then he had Ashan, then Meier's 3 seasons. So we had 7 years. We had 2 guys that wore the C3 straight years in that time period. So, but also on this list of captains, Nick Oliver. I mean, yeah, Clark Kuster wore an A in the 1920 season. So Joe Howe he never played at St. Cloud. That's why he's not on this list. And he was a goalie too. And goalies don't really wear letters typically, except Mike Lee in the 2011-2012 season.
Mike Lee did, yeah.
Anyway, yeah, we're getting off track here. I think we're both in strong agreement and strong endorsement of this move with Spencer Meier added to the staff. I'm interested to see exactly what his responsibilities will be. I would assume they're going to largely involve defense, coaching defensemen. Obviously, with that being his position during his playing days, but just as the young guy, he might be in several different wear several different hats. So, like to see some fresh blood with this very new, other than Clark Kuster, coaching staff. Great to see that roster, which last show we went and kind of did some preliminary math, and counting up all the numbers of who's coming back and who's coming in. We figured at that time he had 24 that we knew or have a good idea are coming in. So that left a couple more spots, especially at the defensive position, to fill. Certainly needed to fill. You only had 6 defensemen at that time when we were doing our math. And sure enough, in the month since, we've gotten a couple more recruits to join the fold. 2 defensemen, which is expected because of just the numbers needed for that position. First, the first commitment we'll talk about here, Will Sharpe, who is similar in the Hayden Papanikis camp, another addition since Oliver's taken the job. Guy that was Sharpe, like Papanikis, drafted in the NHL draft in 2025. So last summer, Papanikis, a higher draft pick, 3rd or 4th round. Sharpe was drafted in the 7th round last season by the Kings. 6'1", about 200. He's Canadian. He's been playing. He split the season last year in the WHL between Kelowna and Vancouver. He's not like, in terms of his WHL numbers, he's not putting up like great offensive numbers, and I don't think that Kelowna in particular was very good. very good team. Also with Lethbridge, parts of 2 seasons with them. He's coming in as a 19-year-old. He's got an 07 birthday. He seems like a good prospect. I mean, he's, again, a guy that's on the NHL radar and he's already been picked. So again, I don't know if I expected when Oliver took the job that these late commits were going to be in the NHL draft mold. Typically, we see like late recruits, and this might just be a thing now with CHL being opened to NCAA. Maybe the days of filling out your roster with kind of NAHLers is not as common as it once was. We'll get to an NAHL late edition here in a little bit. So that era is certainly not completely over, but I was just surprised to see that, we're going to get the 7th defenseman to join this roster. And, oh, by the way, he's already been drafted by the Kings. Now, I know that NHL draft is not everything. Ben Storr, like we just mentioned, he was an NHL draft pick. So it doesn't guarantee that stardom is to follow at the college level when you pick up a guy that's got a NHL logo next to his name on the roster or on the line chart. But Will Sharpe, go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a ton about him. So I just have kind of like blurbs from elite prospects or anything along those lines. But, he just kind of seems like a defenseman who just is kind of a Swiss Army knife. He's he's 6, what did you say? 6'1", right? But he plays
6'1".
bigger than that. And has some, really good experience in big games. He's got, kind of a good puck moving defenseman, but he plays with some physicality, which I think is something that is really needed at this level. Sometimes I felt like we're a little bit too timid when it comes to play on the boards. And I think that's where some teams like Duluth, for example, at times was able to kind of take over games when they were a little bit more physical in the corners. So, just, a player like that again and a, draft pick. So, a lot of people have some eyes on him, and it's kind of a nice ad for Oliver and company.
In a similar mold, I suppose, not a drafted player, but Garret Frazer, also committed, also CHLer. Now he's coming from the OHL, the Ontario Hockey League, which that's the league that Oljanski's, Daryl Oljanski's, another defenseman that Oliver has committed since taking the head coaching job at St. Cloud. Those 2 guys play in the same league. The guys that Larson had recruited to St. Cloud, I think exclusively, were from the WHL, which is where Sharpe was from. So it's good to see that Oliver is getting some inroads into the OHL, another strong league in Canadian juniors. Similar build. You look at this guy's, elite prospects line, 6'1", 185, so a little bit lighter, I guess, than Sharpe. But his numbers as well, kind of more in that stay-at-home mold. Doesn't put up a huge amount of offense. Virginia-born prospect makes me think of Garrett Rowe when I think of Virginia hockey players at St. Cloud State. I don't know if he grew up there. At least he was born there. But an American kid. I was
going to say, I didn't know Virginia was in OHL territory.
I'm not quite sure. Had some NAHL experience prior to going up north to Canada. But again, with the players of this mold, we're just filling out the roster. And not to say that the last 2 defensemen that you commit to the team automatically slot into your 7th and 8th positions on the defensive depth chart. I would assume, especially, I would think Sharpe is going to get fairly regular playing time, and I don't anticipate Frazer being like an automatic scratch. I think we're going to see a fair amount of him. He's 20, so he's a little bit older, a year older than Sharpe, and he's got plenty of experience. He's gotten 3 full years of juniors under his belt, so Can see him being a contributor to this team, perhaps not on the power play. He's a freshman who historically hasn't put up points offensively, but these are valuable players. The position is defense. We know the struggles that the last couple of Larson teams had on the back end, particularly depth on the back end. If we get a guy like Garret, Frazer, Will Sharpe to come in, they may put up 5 to 10 points, but they're not giving up much on the back end. I'd take that all day long. Anything to add with Garret, Frazer's addition?
First and foremost, I love a right-handed defenseman, and that's what Frazer is. Sure. So I can actually see him getting a good amount of playing time, especially in kind of a shutdown role. One thing that's really kind of stood out to me, and granted it's only one game, but last game they did end up losing 5-4 in overtime against North Bay when he played for the Peterborough Petes. Did have one assist in that game, but he was a +4. So +4 in a 5-4 overtime game, game that went 97 minutes. So it was a marathon, and you can say what you want about plus minus, and people do, but I do kind of look at it a little bit differently when it's a 5-4 game and you are a +4 on the ice.
Yeah, that's not bad. Looking forward to see he and Sharpe, both of their contributions to this back end. The third and what we think is final recruit, and I was a little surprised when I saw this commit, EJ Paddington, forward from the NAHL, the aforementioned NAHL. Very fitting that Paddington played for the Austin Bruins. Bear, get it? Mm-hmm. Paddington. And put up a hell of a year for Austin. 72 points in 58 games. And that was after his first season there in 24-25, basically putting up a point a game there as well. This another Canadian prospect. He's 21. He's coming in, so he's not going to have, now with the new eligibility rules, you can go back to our last show or maybe 2 shows ago, we were talking about the new eligibility 5-and-5 rule change. That means he'll probably have 3 years of NCAA eligibility, but coming in as a guy that kind of dominated the NAHL, this might mean that, I was kind of speculating if this means that Nathan Brown, who I touched on last show, he's one of the 3 committed Canadian players who committed under Larson, who we haven't gotten for sure they're coming news yet. Brown, Zach Shantz, Brock Such, those are the 3. If I was thinking if there was going to be any guys that weren't going to show up on roster in the fall, in St. Cloud, it would be one of those guys, and probably Brown would be the most likely of those. I'm not sure if Paddington's commitment is a sign that either Brown is going back to juniors or is decommitting. I haven't heard news on that. If you have, let me know. But Paddington's sure coming in because, like I said, he's already 21. And he's a guy, again, with this more fits the mold of what I expected for a late recruit. But if you're putting up monster numbers, yes, it is the NHL, but you're putting up monster numbers like that, they're going to make my head turn a little bit. And that means you're elevated more from the prospect, like you're just like a happy to be there kind of guy. I think that you have a chance to produce, maybe not right away, but I think he's a guy that could end up being a positive asset for this team. So again, with the kinds of players that he's bringing in here, the roster that he's assembled just in the last couple of months here, we've got NHL draft picks, Canadians on one hand, and we've got the guys like Paddington, and I think Adam Vigfuson is kind of in this camp as well, as these kind of late bloomer types, 21-year-olds that have really strong junior careers at, lesser quote unquote junior levels. But still, I think these are guys that are hard workers that have proven to be stars on their team. I don't think those guys necessarily grow on trees, and they can be a benefit to this roster. So with this, and again, we'll find out if guys like Brown or someone that we previously had thought was going to be on this roster, if they're either decommitting or maybe coming next year instead. Still, welcome aboard to EJ Paddington. Anything to add with the what we now see it, our newest Husky forward?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, our I name dropped him earlier, but Eric Zamora, our null whiz, shall I say, when he sent me a text after Paddington committed, also with a Bear reference. This
is going to get pretty old. Once they tell Gino, or if Gino when he gloms onto that, it's going to be all season, and
it's gonna be nothing but marmalade jokes.
And raincoats and marmalade.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, the Paddington movies are delightful. I've seen 1 and 2. I haven't seen Paddington in Peru yet. But the first
that's
two,
the best one. I mean, what are you waiting for?
The first 2 are incredibly good. I watched them with my kids, and they were a lot of fun. So I highly recommend, especially if you have kids, the Paddington movies. Secondly, I wanted to kind of compare, with the null, you get kind of a mix of players, but I thought of, I thought immediately comes to mind is probably the most successful null player that played at St. Cloud State. At least the one that comes to mind, and there's probably a couple more, but the one that comes to mind, that Fitzgerald.
Okay, so that my first inkling with NAHL was Nick Dowd.
Oh, there we go. That's a good one too. So I wanted to kind of see what Fitzgerald's kind of points of what he put up and how that would compare.
This is good.
And Fitzgerald was about a point a game player in the null, and obviously Fitzgerald was a heck of a player there at St. Cloud State, and especially one of the best players down low. I would say if he had the puck alone on a goalie down low, it was in the back of the net in a split second. Now EJ Paddington, more than a point per game, 70, like you said, 72 points in 58 games. And also a massive human being,
a little bit different than Kevin.
A little different than Kevin Fitzgerald, 6'4", 212. So I'm also looking at this roster too. I mean, we got a couple of beefy guys on the team, and then with Vigfusson as well, who is very small in stature.
He's more in the Fitzgerald.
So I'm really excited to see them on the line. Maybe if we can get Vigfusson and Paddington like a null connection, and then have them stand together. Just the duality of man, really, when it comes to the size of these players. But back to what Zamora said after the Bear references, and I got sidetracked with the movie's Paddington. It was he was incredibly high on him and saying that he's absolute beast, and even predicted that in a couple of years he's going to be a mainstay on the top lines. That he's really going to showcase his ability. So, after you said Nick Dowd, so I just went back here for the Winterchi Wild. Yeah, 71 points in 43 games. So
not too bad. And he was a guy that
the next season
drafted as well, which was rare because he would have been 2009, 2010 in that range when NAHL guys were not drafted typically in the NHL draft. They kind of peaked right before the CHL thing kind of opened, and I think that's if there's any negative downside effects of like CHL opening to NCAA, it might affect the NAHL level more so than any other.
I think it's going to have a huge effect on the NHL. Yeah,
which is sad because I think it was a league that was definitely growing, and and just producing some really impact players. We've just named a handful here in recent St. Cloud State history of, Kevin Fitzgerald's a leading scorer, I believe, in one of his years with St. Cloud, and a good Huskies team, tournament team. So, it's a good league. Don't sleep on it. Just because a whole new, route for recruiting has been open doesn't mean that there's not quality players that are being developed at that level. So, and especially with that build of Paddington, excited to see exactly what he can do. And as an older guy, I mean, we're a very young team this year, and 21, he's still a freshman, but he's got more experience than, a lot of players that are on this team that are also going to be fellow freshmen. And so
Gino, if you're listening, he's Big Bear. There we go. There's his nickname, Big Bear down low. Gino, you can credit me on that one.
I don't think that it'd be a
if you're listening and you say that on air, I will make a coffee mug and I'll send it to you.
Not sure if I don't think he listens. I mean, not many people do listen. We're very upfront about that, but you do, the hypothetical you, of course,
the royal
you. I'm trying to get that as segue. Is there something royal in Brainerd? I know Royalton is kind of on the way to Brainerd. Maybe that's the closest.
There you go. That treasure junk shop that's there in Royalton that my wife always wants me to stop at. Treasure City. Yeah, that's what
tourist trap they got there. That's what people do in Royalton, Minnesota. Is they probably if you live there, you never go there. But
just off of Bolus.
Highway 10. Yeah, it's in that the Bolus metro area. Brainerd. Why do I bring up Brainerd? Well, St. Cloud State is going to play in Brainerd this year. Actually, both the men's and the women's teams are going to be playing in Brainerd this year. The women's team opens their season. We got an exhibition game mid-September against Bemidji. That's going to be played indoors. At least I would assume. No one's said it otherwise. It'd be kind of weird to play an outdoor game in September.
That'd be crazy.
In Brainerd, I think that'd be tough to pull off. But the men are a little bit more high profile. It still is an exhibition game, which is a bit disappointing. But they're playing on Hockey Day, Minnesota, January 30th, 2027, and outdoors in the midst of the all-day event. Extravaganza, Lollapalooza that the Hockey Day Minnesota has become all week now. That's what they did last year in Hastings. My dad participated in that a little bit. They're really stretching out the number of events they're doing for Hockey Day, not just a day, but multi-day event. But on the actual Hockey Day, the real one, the flagship Hockey Day, St. Cloud State will be playing St. Thomas as a featured matchup on that bill. I think the only college game they're playing in Brainerd there. The rest are high school games, obviously. It's somewhat of a marquee matchup. To me, it was a bit dampened by the fact that it is a exhibition game, and it is against St. Thomas, who now are a conference foe. Already going to be seeing them 4 times in the regular season. You're going to be seeing them 3 weeks before this game in Brainerd in NCHC play. And then they'll see him a couple of weeks after that for the second series in regular season play. So I have mixed feelings about it. Obviously, I think it's a great opportunity, and I think the players are going to get a kick out of it. I wish it meant something. I think the only way that they could do it is if either St. Cloud or St. Thomas sacrifices one of their home games in their regular season series and says, "Hey, we'll designate that as a conference game instead." I would prefer that. I don't think that that's going to happen, but I wish that. I mean, you're going through the trouble of playing outdoors. You got to prepare for that, and to have it not count, it seems like a waste. It also seems like a waste that it's the only bye weekend they have in the second half. And again, so you're burning through that. Yes, you're only playing the one game, and it is an exhibition game. So maybe, players aren't going to be playing 20 minutes in that game because it doesn't really count. And you certainly don't want to risk any injury in a game that doesn't mean anything in the standings. So again, I wish it was, even if it was St. Cloud giving up one of their home games, I would prefer it to count the standings. And I would prefer it to not be against a conference opponent and your designated rival in the NCHC at that. Because I think playing an exhibition game against a team you're already seeing 4 times a year kind of loses the benefit of an exhibition game. An exhibition game should be something that kicks off rust, like either you're playing at the very beginning of the season or like the beginning of the second half after your long Christmas break. Squeezing it in the middle of the week, the middle of the second half on your one-off weekend seems like it's not really ideal. Like I could just imagine like Motzko, if he was still the coach here, he'd complain about the fact that they don't have an off weekend in the second half. Like, well, you were the one that wanted to do this. But from what I've heard, this was a Larson initiated thing. I don't think this was Oliver's idea. I think Oliver had to sign off on it, but I think the talks had been going, had stretched prior to when Oliver took the job, and Larson was really the guy that was, at least from St. Cloud's end, was the impetus for getting this event scheduled. Again, I think it's a cool idea. It would be if I was still around, certainly it's got to be like one of the most intriguing exhibition games that's ever been on St. Cloud's schedule. I'd consider going if I was around. What about you? Is this, are you hyped for it? I hope you are, because I feel like I'm kind of dampening some enthusiasm. I don't mean to be. I just wish that it actually counted for something.
I mean, you're right. That's the frustrating part, and a little bit frustrating that it's against St. Thomas, which maybe I'm overthinking it, and maybe it's just more of a way to really kick off this rivalry of playing them 5 times. You're really going to start to hate them, even if it is an exhibition game. But you know, it's just like, how do you approach it in a game that really doesn't matter, but it's on a marquee like Hockey Day, Minnesota? It's like, I'm imagine it's a little bit tough for like the broadcast team to really try to hype up this big matchup against 2 NCHC teams that are really slugging it out when in fact, the game itself doesn't mean anything. Now, like you said, like the only way it could realistically happen is that one of us gives up a home game, right? Now, I don't think it would be St. Cloud State, because our series is the last series of the year. We end at home against St. Thomas. Yeah.
Yes, and they've changed that slightly, because it was originally announced when the NCHC schedule was originally released. Those 2 series were home and homes, but that has since been changed, where the January series is both games are at St. Thomas. The February series, the last regular season series, both of those games are home games for St. Cloud. So that has been changed since April, when it was originally released.
So then St. Thomas would have to give up a home game, and I can imagine that they're the ones that kind of bucked at that. Or also they kind of want to treat that, maybe they don't want conference points on the line when it comes to something that can be as finicky as an outdoor game, or really trust. I don't know. So, I mean, there could be a bunch of different reasons on why, but it does kind of hinder it. The fact that, it is because you'd essentially be giving us another home game. I mean, it's Brainerd, so it's in our neck of the nape of the woods. So I can kind of see their aspects of it, but it's kind of a bummer that it is, but I'm still looking at it thinking I'd like to go to it. Now that's all going to depend on, I'm going to have possibly 3 kids in hockey this year, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to. But it is, anytime that we can be on a marquee event like Hockey Day in Minnesota, I can see the university trying to jump on that and say, yes, we should have our name out there when it comes to it.
You'd really like to think too, like the perfect solution would be, because you got that weird split series with Bemidji this year, You're going
That
up
would
to
be the
Bemidji
perfect
to start the season, and then you've got the home game in St. Cloud on the Wednesday in December, which seems so weird. I did check. Bemidji's playing Mankato in a CCHA game that weekend, so obviously they're booked, and you really want to obviously play another Minnesota team on Minnesota Day.
Mm-hmm.
So your options,
and that would be the perfect answer.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the women are playing Bemidji in Brainerd, as we mentioned. So like it'd be perfect symmetry. Like the men would play Bemidji and you could play that game for real. Like it would actually count, and it would almost be like, okay, yeah, it's not a conference game. So you can see like the coaches being like, yeah, that's okay for a non-conference game. At least it counts, but it doesn't count for conference points. I like it. But it could never, wasn't to be, unfortunately. But like I said, maybe we'll get the Hail Mary here, and either St. Cloud or St. Thomas will say, yeah, we'll give up our home game and play that. That would be my dream.
I just can't imagine the NCHC would want one less game on the last weekend of the season.
True. I think of the reasons we're talking about, I don't think that would be the most important reason to not do it. Like, well, we can't have still play the Saturday game at home. So get rid of the Friday home game of that last series and just move that to the last Friday or the last Saturday in January, playing up in Brainerd. I could see what you were saying. Yeah. I mean, at least it would cause the standings would look goofy.
Yeah,
because going into that last season,
I can imagine Schlossman's blog too, trying to do all the calculations and be like, oh, that's right, they've already have a game in hand, and that's not going to rectify itself until the second to last game of the season.
Yeah, well, it's frustrating that it can't be what we want it to exactly be, but it'll still be something that
should be.
I'll be watching it, and it's going to be, like I said, it'll be the highest profile exhibition game.
Highest profile exhibition hockey day Minnesota game.
I'm sure like the announcers, does Erickson do those?
I don't know.
Maybe the Wild. Well, no, because the Wild will play that game that they.
Well, here's the thing: the Wild don't really have a broadcast partner, so I don't even know actually who's doing Hockey Day Minnesota.
Well, whoever will do it, I'm sure they're not going to be like, right, they're starting the broadcast going, hey, it's a big exhibition tilt. They're going to sell it as, in-state rivalry, the Battle of the Saints. They're not. And then like in the middle of the first period, they'll be like, oh, by the way, this doesn't count for anything. They'll sneak that in right before commercial break, I'm sure.
They'll sneak that.
Speaking
That's a good point. I actually don't know, like, we don't have a broadcast partner. So I wonder how these games are going to be televised. I probably should have done research.
I would assume that someone's going to do the games. But I guess we'll see on who that talent will be. Big assignment. But yeah, we're talking about schedules, and we've talked about the men's team. We talked about the men's team pretty much wall-to-wall last show. We gave some short shrift to the women. We're going to make up for it here. And transition into talking about the women's team. We've got a couple of nuggets, and we've got a roster outlook preview prospectus kind of thing, similar to the bit we did last show for the men. We've got that coming up as well. We're talking about schedules of the men. We can talk about the schedule with the women's team because we finally got a non-conference schedule. We were waiting a while for that, but it is now out. We had some inklings. We knew they were going to play UConn because they went out to UConn last year. So anticipating a UConn return trip to St. Cloud this year. And that is who St. Cloud will kick off the regular season. I mentioned that Brainerd game against Bemidji. The exhibition is on Saturday, the 19th in September. So the following weekend, UConn comes. Huskies versus Huskies. And
that's a big early season matchup.
And I think we mentioned this last show or the show before. That is going to be at the MAC. That'll be close to you, walking distance, right? Because of the Herb renovations, it will not be open by that time. So they are going to play it. This is on the SCSUHuskies.com page. They are listing those games at the MAC. So different venue, and you get a nice early season tilt. And UConn had a really good year last year. Tia Chan, the nation's best goaltender, voted on, which it surprised me and disappointed me because they don't have it's called the Women's Hockey Commissioners Association Goaltender of the Year. They don't have like the Mike Ricker. They don't name it after somebody. It's just kind of a blandly named award. But the nation's best goaltender, Tia Chan, graduated. So I don't anticipate this to be as good of a UConn team as it was last year. And last year they were similar to the Huskies, where the St. Cloud State Huskies, I should say, because we're both Huskies. But in a similar mold where they're led by goaltending and they kind of struggle to score offense. So without Chan and net, I do think there's going to be a bit of a dip in UConn. Fourth or fifth nationwide last year in pairwise? All I'd say, I think they're a good team. I don't think they're going to be that high. Perhaps still the favorites in hockey, maybe them or Northeastern. But I think it'll be a nice test to start your season in late September. And again, at a different venue than we're used to. The other two series are road series in the non-conference for the women's Huskies team. They're going out to Colgate in early October and then going to Vermont on the same weekend that the men play in Vermont, that Thanksgiving weekend. So those of you like myself who are thinking about making that trip to Burlington, you'd be able to see both Huskies teams there play the Catamounts, which is, when are they going to go out there again? I think it's been 20 plus years since the women have been out there, and the men for that matter. Not an opponent that the Huskies have ever really seen more than a handful of times in their history. So, and the Colgate series as well. I mean, that might be the toughest of these three series. They're not as good as they were maybe 2 or 3 years ago. They did take a step back last year, but still a quality team. That's especially on the road. If anything, I mean, these three games, it almost surprises me that we didn't see a Lindenwood among these opponents, because typically, I mean, they're close-ish travel-wise. I mean, there's not much close travel options in your non-conference in the women's side of the game. And Lindenwood is probably like the one bus trip you might be able to make, and that kind of be stretching it. But you're jumping on a plane to go to Colgate. You're jumping on a plane to go to Vermont. Now you're sharing airfare with the men's team, presumably when you go to Vermont, because you're both going to the same place. But adding Colgate to the schedule, you're gonna play, if not the toughest schedule in the country, like 2 or 3 toughest, because of the gauntlet that is the WCHA. Then you're adding, a tournament team last year in UConn, a near close tournament team in Colgate. This is an unrelenting schedule. And it's with how road heavy it is to start the season. You're not playing at the Herb until late October. It's going to be a challenge for this team. What do you think about it? What I'm getting at is this too tough of a non-conference schedule? Do you want to call it maybe a gimme series, relatively speaking, in there, just to get some confidence up?
I mean, I could see that. It's tough because you probably didn't know also where UConn would be. And you can even argue right now you don't know where it is. If you don't know where, since UConn, with Tia Chan gone, you don't know where UConn's going to be here through this year, where, last couple of years, it would be a tough matchup. So that one, maybe I could see it where you want that, especially with Minnesota State. I think they're making kind of a surge up. I think, St. Thomas is as well. So I can see kind of both sides of it. But at the same time, if you are going to be playing up against the Minnesotas, the Ohio States, you're going to want to get up to that level and play tough competition. And it's, the old adage of iron sharpens iron, or steel sharpens steel. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's, I'll go with the one I know, and that's Ric Flair. It's to be the man, you got to beat the man, or woman in this case. So it's that kind of instance of, have a tough schedule. And it's one of those things also is that, in the NPI, at least in the pairwise days, now I imagine also in the NPI as well, it's the losses against bad teams that hurt you a lot more than anything else. So, I mean, if you have losses still in non-conference, but it's against really good teams, that's not going to hurt you nearly as much, and you can squeak some out even better. But I think that's where it can be demoralizing if it's, things don't go your way, especially if you're close and you get a couple of bounces, a couple of bad lucks, or, some collapses that end up happening. And then all of a sudden you're in January with only, 4 or 5 wins under your belt, and that can be incredibly demoralizing too. So it's, it's really a tough situation. And it's kind of going to, I wouldn't say it's a no-win situation, but it's going to be kind of tough. It's a tough schedule. We know it always is in the WCHA. But we'll see what the women can do, and if they're, and I think they're going to be up to the task. I'm looking forward to kind of an exciting year for Yelosua's second year at the helm.
Indeed, second year at the helm for Mira Yelosua, who replaced Brian Idalski about 13 months ago, a little bit over a year ago at this time. Idalski made the move to the PWHL, taking the job of the Vancouver Golden Eyes as their first ever head coach. Fast forward a year, and he was fired from that job. And shortly after it was announced, a couple weeks ago at this point, that he was hired. He's back in the NCAA Division I ranks as the head coach of Syracuse. Plays in the Atlantic Hockey Association, or is it Atlantic Hockey America? I think they tweaked the name of it a couple years ago. But you follow the P-Dub closer than I do. I did see that Seattle, who's also had their first year last year as an expansion team, they did a one and done with their coach as well. I don't know if, is the PWHL just a volatile league? Is the job security not very tight there? Because I was surprised to see that he was fired. Not surprised, I suppose, that he landed on his feet again. In maybe a little surprised he went straight back to the NCAA. Your thoughts on, and I have some thoughts on Idalski's departure, but I'll give you the first word because I think you're more plugged into the PWHL. If you knew anything or were surprised by that move, and then were you surprised, or what's your reaction with him landing at Syracuse?
First and foremost, I think Syracuse, I think the Orange are in good hands with Idalski. So I am, I think the world of him as a coach. But I've also been on the record that he intimidates the hell out of me. And I think the PWHL is a league, and I kind of want to be careful when I say this. Now, Vancouver didn't have a wonderful first season, but I mean, they weren't at the bottom of they were 9-14. And I think 4 overtime losses or somewhere in there. There were 6 out of 8. And they were an expansion team. Seattle was worse. New York was worse. And so, but I feel that the PWHL is a league that will listen to their players and stars a lot more when it comes to who the coach is. And I wonder if some of the players were rubbed wrong by Idalski's. I talked about how much of a boon it is to have such a young staff to relate to college players. But Idalski is of that, I feel, as more of a hardened coach my way, or, he just is a much more intimidating presence. So I wonder if that rubbed some of the players in the PWHL the wrong way, and they end up going to the general manager and saying, hey, he isn't the right guy for us. We want him removed, and he's gone. And I think that goes a lot also in professional coach in the NHL too. I mean, there's so much turnover for coach. One of the best jobs you can have, second to, I think, being a fired college football coach, is a fired NHL coach, because you're not only going to get paid because you got fired, but you're going to get another coaching job very soon in the NHL. So I think it's just kind of the nature of the beast. But I remember that Minnesota Frost, their first year, they had a championship winning team and they ended up ousting the coach afterwards. So, and there were rumors that allegedly some of the players named Kendall Coyne Schofield didn't care for the head coach, and therefore was going to get rid of the head coach. And there was some kind of coup d'etat there after winning a championship. So I wonder if that kind of situation happened there, but also that's also professional hockey, how it works. Sometimes men and women. So I don't know. It did kind of surprise me that just after 1 year, you're going to axe a coach. But so it must be that there was some kind of other influence kind of going on there, is kind of my take of what I seem. And maybe I said too much. No, but I said allegedly a couple times, so it's fine, right?
No, it's good insight. This is actually the second job that Idalski has bagged since getting dumped in Vancouver. He was hired by Czechia as their women's national team coach. That was back in May. So, and for what I'm reading, he's going to be retaining that job while he's also serving as Syracuse's head coach. I will say, I mean, I would, based on his track record, especially at the college level, saw what he did turning around, which was a moribund North Dakota program before he took over.
It was so bad.
One win, maybe, the year before he took over. I mean, they were terrible. And within 3 or 4 years, they were making the tournament, an 8-team tournament at that NCAA tournament at that time. So before the University of North Dakota pulled the rug out from under the women's program there, he was really turning that program into a power nationally. And we saw what he did with St. Cloud, obviously, a program that has always struggled just to even get winning records over the years. And, he didn't pull in a winning record, but 500 seasons. We were really impressed with the direction that he was taking the Huskies, and we're hopeful that Mira can continue that upward trajectory that he handed the reins off to her last year. Now with Syracuse, and which is I've mentioned before, they were like the weirdest team in maybe college hockey in both genders, because they're a huge school. They're a Power 5 school. They don't have a men's team at the D1 NCAA level. They only have the women's team. And the women's team, I think, has made a tournament once, maybe twice. Won the Atlantic Hockey 4 or 5 years ago, I remember. But generally speaking, they're a kind of an afterthought. You'd figure that they have a decent amount of resources, more so than even other than Penn State, who's been dominating that league the last couple of years. Maybe they're in the same conference as Robert Morris and Mercyhurst and Lindenwood, Delaware now. You think that a school with the kind of money and backing in their athletic department that Syracuse has, that they can be pretty competitive. You put the right personnel in place. I don't think there's anything that is stopping Syracuse from, maybe not turning into what Penn State has become the last couple of years, but, a solid contender. And Idalski very well might be the guy to make that change for Syracuse into more of a relevant team on the women's side in D1. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing, even this year, we saw in his first year in St. Cloud here that he was already turning heads. You'd think that the Atlantic Hockey is a easier league, quote unquote, to make a quick turnaround than it is WCHA. So I wish him the best. We are kind of like living precariously through him. Like we were sad to see him go here. And again, we're happy with Yellow Suo, but it's still, it's like, what would have the trajectory have gone had he remained here? And with his kind of all these moves that he's been doing lately, I mean, prior to taking the St. Cloud job, he was coaching in China for a couple of years, both professional league there, women's professional league there, as well as their national team. He's taken a series of jobs. I wonder if he's kind of got like what they call the itchy feet syndrome. Like he just can't stay in the same job for more than a couple of years. It kind of reminds me of Herb Brooks. It's always a good sign if you're a hockey coach to be named in the same sentence as Herb Brooks. But when I was doing some research on Brooks' 4 Cloud coverage piece that I did, it is kind of surprising that after he left the Gophers to take the Team USA job, the only job he was head coach like 7 or 8 different spots, but he was at every one of those jobs was a 1-year gig, except for the Rangers. The Rangers was the one, he was there for 3 years, parts of 3 years for the New York Rangers. But he was with Team USA for a year. He went to Switzerland. He coached there for a year. He was with the Rangers, like I said, for 3 years. Then he was at St. Cloud for 1 year. Then he's with the North Stars for 1 year. He coached the Utica Devils for 1 year. Then he got the New Jersey Devils job for 1 year. Went to Pittsburgh for 1 year. He would never last more than one season, which is just kind of weird. And Idalski, he hasn't been like the 1 year stops other than this Vancouver job, which only lasted one season. But he's kind of had a series of shorter duration jobs after the North Dakota job ended. And it might just be, like you said, he's got a personality that's, he's not necessarily the best glad hander. He might not be the most charming guy, but I think he gets results. And wish him well in Syracuse, unless they get on the schedule for St. Cloud. Then I don't wish him well at all. But
and if they're on the schedule against St. Cloud, maybe that means that they both make the tournament, which I would be okay with. I guess non-conference aside, but just kind of going back, when you said them making the tournaments, 2022, Syracuse made the tournament. They lost 4-0 to Quinnipiac in the first round. And then Quinnipiac ended up losing actually in Quinnipiac lost in double overtime to Ohio State, which was the number 1 overall seed. And Ohio State that year won the whole thing that year. Yeah. They won 4-3 against Quinnipiac, 2-1 against Yale, and then 3-2 against Minnesota Duluth. So we talk about the WCHA being dominant, but Ohio State had to squeak by some of these games. Now, granted, I'm looking at just the scores. I mean, that Ohio State Yale game, the shots still could have been 50-2, but 2-1 was the end score. That definitely is a possibility. But
was that just the one tournament appearance then for Syracuse in their history?
No. But first off, I want to just double check what the shots on goal for Ohio State. Yale. I don't know why I want to check what this is. Power play, penalty summary. Do we really not have shots? No, I don't. Not at my fingertips. Whatever. 2019. And that's when it was 8-team.
Okay.
And they lost to Wisconsin in the first round. Number 1 seed Wisconsin. They lost 4-0. Wisconsin ended up winning 5-0 to Clarkson and then 2-0 against Minnesota. So Wisconsin in the national tournament did not give up a goal. So Syracuse have won or gone to the NCAA tournament 2 times, and both times fell in the quarterfinals to the eventual champion.
Yeah, and basically since that 2022 season, I think every year since then it's been Penn State that's come out of Atlantic hockey, I believe. Mm-hmm. So, but again, I don't think Mercyhurst has been decent. St. Cloud's seen them a couple of times in the last few seasons. Competitive. They've been like the Atlantic hockey runner-up to Penn State the last couple of years in the playoffs. But I don't think it'll take much for Syracuse. If Idalski's still got his magic, I don't think it'll take much for them to sneak into that conversation at least. And maybe compete with the Nittany Lions for supremacy in that conference. But enough about Atlantic hockey. Let's get to some Huskies.
Already too much about Atlantic hockey.
So we've got I've got some notes and tallying up who we've all got on roster, and sort of this is a good exercise. You've got something.
Oh, well, Ohio State 38-24 over Yale on shots that game.
Okay, we needed that. We needed that shot total. What was that? 2022?
I don't know why it was bugging me, but it was bugging me. However, again, the one that I said they squeaked by Quinnipiac in double overtime, 4-3, 77-22 on shots.
There we go. That's that shot disparity that you were wanting to find.
In the first overtime, Ohio State outshot Quinnipiac 19-2.
This is a new one for our random box score fans out there. So we've got NCAA tournament box scores from the women's tournament from 2022. That's what you get this week.
That's what you get this week. Claire DeGeorge scored the game winner.
Good stuff.
State that game. All right, I'm sorry. Let's talk about.
Let me know when you're ready. Let me know when you're ready. If you still want to linger, I mean, hey, nostalgia is a powerful drug.
All right, 2.5 drinks is my martini was probably.
Have you gotten to the beer yet? Are you?
Yes, I'm on the beer right now. I think you could. I think everyone could tell. Okay, he's on.
What is that? What's that? What's the beer that you got?
Kona Big Wave.
You said that you're still struggling to get through that 12-pack.
I don't care for it. And it's one of those that's like the new kind of trendy on tap beer. And it's just, I don't know. I'm starting to have trouble finding a good fridge beer. And
you were saying that last show, and I think I might have one. I don't know if they have it where you're at, but it's been in the store. And I've just walked past it, not really giving it a second thought. But for the July 4th, the 250th anniversary, they had these 12 packs of Outlaw Light. They had this on sale for $2.50. Get it for $2.50. So I'm like, I have to get it. You're basically giving it away. I actually think it's a decent light beer.
Oh, okay.
Like I think it's drinkable. I think it's pretty decent. I would prefer it over like Coors or a lot of the mainstream light beers. And
Last time I tried on a whim one of those beers, it was Beer 30 was the name of the beer, and it came in a 30 pack. And I think the 30 pack was like $8 or $9 or something like that. Terrible. Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't even stomach that.
Yeah, I didn't have high hopes for this. And it's usually like this is the sale price, but it's usually like $9 or $10. So it's not this was like steeply on sale from an already discount beer. So I didn't have much of high expectations for this, but they've exceeded those low expectations. And for a light beer, a domestic light, what else can you ask for? So sure, that's, I guess, my recommendation for the week. All right. Women's
when you said 250, I immediately thought of the Timex 250 America watch that they just released.
Does it take a licking and still go on ticking?
Yeah. And I think I want it. It's kind of been going back and forth, but not like, like I've started to get into watches. And like, cause I figure like, I'm already at the mid-age crisis of, I'll get into bourbon, which is expensive as hell. So why not get into watches, which is more expensive? But so I've, kind of looked at some of the Timex. I've looked at some of the Orients. I've looked at some some. I mean, I'm not going to go up to
Casio,
the Omegas or the.
That's a good brand. They've got the calculator in it.
I'm wearing a Casio right now.
There you go.
For the record, right now, my wife got me a Belova not too long ago. And then there's the Hamiltons that I've been looking at. Anyway, I'm starting to get into watches, and I think that's my next midlife crisis. I don't know why I went on to that. Let's talk about the women's roster. Sorry.
I think it's time.
It's time to talk about the women's
roster.
According to my Casio F91W that I got at Walmart for $21.
We're not even at 90 minutes. I mean, I would assume this is going to be the bulk of the show here, so we're making good time here. I went into a deep dive on this roster and kind of like how I organized the men's kind of roster outlook from last show. Kind of did the same thing here. I just wanted to add up numbers. First of all, like who we lost over the offseason. And again, time's a flat circle when it comes to hockey offseason. So like having just me to look at last year's roster and see who we lost. And then like, oh yeah, okay. It all kind of floods back. And this is a good exercise to have. It's a good thing to do in late July for a hockey fan. So a fair amount of turnover, not as much as the men's team, obviously, but that's tough to do. The men's team is, 9 players are all that's left from last year's roster. There's a bit more carryover from last season for the women, but a fair amount of, at least roster departures. So we had 4 players graduate. Grace Wolf, who got drafted in the PWHL. Avery Farrell, Svenja Vogt, who I saw signed in Europe, and then Jojo Chobak from the goaltender core. So 4 graduating players, and we had a fair amount of exits via the portal. Probably most notably Sydney Lamb went to Clarkson, also Sydney Bryant went to St. Thomas. Sydney Bryant was more of a swing player. She played D almost all of last year, if not all of last year. She played some forward earlier in her Husky career, but she's at the other Saint in conference in St. Thomas. Aruba Skiston, who just had a brief look last year, she transferred out to D3. Reese Strouts, again, just got a bit of playing time, not much, less than 10 games. She transferred to Providence. Sydney Jackal, who was a regular last year, played every game as a role player, who I liked. She transferred out to RIT. Lily Erickson transferred to Franklin Pierce, another forward. Hannah Arnold, who was redshirted last year, she didn't see any action for the Huskies. She transferred to U Sports up in Canada. St. Francis, actually, which is a U Sports school up in Canada. I mean, so that's 7 players that found other places via the transfer portal. Paige Hugendam and Haley Lawrence were both goalies last year on roster. Both of them entered the portal. Lawrence didn't get any action for the Huskies last year. She had transferred in from Post as basically their 4th goaltender. She didn't get any action for the Huskies. Hugendam got a couple of games for the Huskies. Neither Hugendam or Lawrence saw any takers in the portal. And I do see Paige Hugendam on roster for the Huskies, or she's still listed on scsuhuskies.com as being on the Huskies. Perhaps we'll start there, I suppose, with goaltenders when we're talking about the depth chart. So we'll go by position, seeing like who's returning and who we've got coming in as fresh blood. For goalies, I mean, I mentioned Chobak's graduated out. Lawrence is no longer in the fold. Hugendam presumably is still on roster. Amelia Carrico, this is her job. With Hugendam as being the presumptive number 2, there was a big gap there. This is not the Ahola and Chobak show, not even the Chobak Carrico show, where like Chobak's last year wasn't like what we thought of a typical Chobak season. The gap between Carrico and Hugendam, no offense to Paige Hugendam, but Carrico is the clear number 1 in that goalie tandem, or that goalie twosome, let's say. And they're joined by Alexis Ehrman, who's coming in as a freshman from Calgary. Again, there might be a competition between, like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some Alexis Ehrman this year, just because Hugendam's not like she has necessarily impressed at the NCAA level. But I think this is going to be a different season. This will be a in terms of, it's been a while since we've had a season where there's been a clear-cut number one goaltender for the Huskies. I think this is Carrico's job, 80% of the games this year. I don't know what you're thinking on that, but just knowing what we've seen from Hoogendam, which again, she's shown some signs of good skill between net, but last year I think she struggled in her brief periods as she was getting some action when Carrico was injured early last year. And it's just difficult to expect a freshman to shoulder a good amount of the load with Alexis Urban. That would be a change, and especially not just with St. Cloud State, but just in women's game, even the men's game to some extent as well. Like how much goaltender platoons are kind of a hot thing now. So this would be a change if it is going to be the Carrico as like the 75% to 80% bulk starter. Do you see that playing out? And how confident are you? Like, we've seen enough of Carrico her first 2 seasons. This will be her junior year. I think this is time for her to take the reins and just lock down this position and put in a great season.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is it's going to be Carrico. That, like you said, 80%. I mean, if we're going to give like an over under on it, even I would. My gut says more even than 80%. I think we're definitely going to ride her. Now, the other side of that is she's had injuries.
Right.
So this is going to be kind of an interesting situation. I do wonder if Hoogendam did see maybe some takers at D3 or U Sports, but was like kind of looking at the situation that if she's going to fight for the number 2 spot and, couple it with you need some spot starts, and also the fact that Carrico does have some injury concerns, that maybe this is still the best kind of situation for her. And I'm just even going back here and maybe this is my fault for not being as keyed in of a women's hockey expert as, expert obviously loosely, but with the women as I am with the men, but as long as I can remember, St. Cloud has had kind of a tandem, with if it was Chobak and Ahola, and then it was Ahola and Plusny, and then Plusny Adler. So it's always kind of been going back, always been some kind of a tandem that when St. Cloud State has won games, usually, especially in some of those, really bad years, it was because of the goaltending situation, that they had to really have the defense and the goaltender stand on their head, and they were able to kind of eke by with a win. And now to have just one goalie that we're kind of hedging our bets on for probably going to start most of the games, unless, again, if there's some sort of injury. So it's kind of an unknown that we have right here. The fact that we have only one, we don't have a tandem anymore. And that's, there's some good to that. There's some bad to that too. Whereas who your starter is going to be, but at the same time, it's, if you're in a key situation and then, either, Carrico goes down, or, you're just not into a rhythm where you kind of need to step up. I mean, we saw that on the men's side with, Castor, getting in, and his, first game was, or, his second or third game, I can't remember, was against Quinnipiac. They're in the national tournament game and played incredibly poorly. So it's going to be kind of a juggling act for the coaching staff to be like, when are you going to kind of have your, second goalie in? And like you said, if, who you're going to start into some of those positions as well. It's going to be kind of an interesting storyline to kind of see develop throughout the season.
Yeah, and you've got to wonder too if mentioning Karika last year, missing 6 weeks to 2 months, something in that range, and you had Choback to fall back on. Now Choback's last season, like I said, was underwhelming compared to her previous track record. You feel like the margin for error or the insurance policy beyond Kariko is not as strong as it was last year.
And especially with the schedule too, like where do you slot them in? That's going to be that's going to be tough.
And you're playing the likes of Wisconsin and Ohio State, and even your non-conference with UConn and Colgate, which aren't gimmies in the least. You don't see a opportunity for like an Alexis Urban to, hey, we can get her feet wet in a comfortable position. Yeah. You still got Bemidji on the schedule, but other than that, I mean, even like you said, St. Thomas and Mankato have improved, and this schedule is uncompromising. Urban, as you mentioned, is 18, so she's very young. Now, when Kariko came aboard, and we didn't have much expectations about her at all. She stepped in like the moment that she first played, it seemed like she was already a multi-year starter at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like she was wise beyond her years playing between the pipes. And maybe Urban is going to be something similar to that. We should hope. Always want good talent on the depth chart, but I do think it's going to be a first time, as you mentioned, in several seasons that I think we're going to see a very clear bulk starter in net. And again, that's as long as she stays healthy. And unfortunately, the track record from last year, that didn't play out the way we'd like to see it. So big X factor there is at least health in net. And as long as we get the Karika that we've come to know, we should be in good hands, at least from that position. And should be not only that, but I mean, that's going to be probably your MVP position. This team competes this year. If they're, in the hunt for home ice in the WCHA playoffs, it's probably going to be because Kariko's putting up a conference goaltender of the year contending type of season. And I would not be surprised by that. But again, that assumes that she's healthy all season and that she's the Kariko that we've come to know. Hope that can be the Kariko that we see this season. And again, I'm always interested in the future. And if Urman's going to be someone in years to come, that's going to be, assuming the mantle between the pipes here, might as well get her some experience this year as well. And Hoogendam, if Hoogendam, if there's someone that of this unit that really wants to prove something, so you say like she probably had some offers to dip down a level to get some more playing time. But if she's, still interested in not just D1, but WCHA kind of prime time action spotlight, the opportunity I think is there. Because I don't think you can just give Kariko literally every game. She's going to need to have a rest here and there. So backup position is going to be key as well. So again, of the units here, I mean, that's the one where we've got like the star in net that we see is the clear favorite to get the majority of the work and a known product that we can hopefully bank on some success, some steady success and consistency in that position. Let's move to defense, which will be, it's an interesting unit because there's going to be some newcomers. I mean, we've lost Grace Wolf, as we mentioned, best defender from last year. Had a great senior season, great fifth-year season, I should say, and wish her the best in the PWHL. Returning from last year's roster, Maylee Pion, Siri Urela, Reagan Bulger, who had another sort of injury-plagued season, which has kind of been her career, unfortunately, at St. Cloud State. Lots of injury problems that she's had to battle through. This Heinen Tarkanainen, which I know I'm butchering that name, she was the late addition, the Finn that joined the team late in the last season. Older player, but I think she's going to have a regular role this season. you might not be feeling. I think she got into 6 games last year, so the name might not be familiar, and I'm not doing the name justice because I'm sure I'm butchering it. But expect her, I think, to see every game action this year. The big addition, other than the freshman that we'll talk about here, is Tristan Thompson coming over from Northeastern, the one transfer portal addition that St. Cloud made this season. Good seasons for good Northeastern teams, especially last year. They made the Frozen Four. She's going to be a junior this year, so 2 years there. It was a deep defensive core that those Huskies had in Northeastern. Thompson wouldn't have been top pairing over there just based on the depth at position that they had, but 6'1", she's the tallest player on roster for the Huskies. I think that she's going to be a top pairing defender here in St. Cloud based on this on this depth chart. Experienced. This is still a young core here. We've got Urela and Bulger as your upperclassmen, and Thompson now. But among the returning St. Cloud State players, just those two with Urela and Bulger. So not much experience among these defenders. I do think Thompson's going to play a major role here among the defensive core. We saw some good signs from Pion, who's I think the other big, tall defender that the Huskies have. I thought we saw some good signs from her last year. I could see her kind of like Urela, who took a step up in her freshman season. Pion kind of had the same trajectory. Like her second half, I thought, all right, we've got something we can work on here going forward. Now we've got some freshmen coming in to the fold here as well. Riley Iverson, who there was Sydney Wolf did an interview with, and there was a piece up that she posted with Iverson. She's coming in this fall. There was a couple of international players. First, Emily Mitchell, so Iverson's an 08 birth year. Mitchell in 07. They're both coming in. Mitchell's from the Detroit area. She committed under Idalski. Idalski's a Michigan guy himself. So I think there was an Idalski connection. We're going to still see. I mean, Idalski, we just mentioned, is now in Syracuse, but there's still a lot of his footprint on this roster because a lot of the team committed under his head coaching tenure. So those two Americans, and then we've got a couple of European imports into the fold. And again, apologies for these names that I'm probably going to be butchering. Anna Sviridova, she's a Russian defender. She's an 04 birth year, so she's an older player, 21 already. I think she'll turn 22 in October. So she has U18 experience with Russia. I think she's an intriguing prospect, and with the age that she has, and again, how young this defensive core is, I do think she's going to be a player that's going to step into regular playing time as well, more so than Iverson or Mitchell necessarily, just because of how young those two players are. Sviridova is much more experienced in comparison to them. The other
also listed Sviridova, Russian, which makes the second Russian on the squad, obviously with McKeeliman. So I wonder if there's some kind of a connection there, or at least some familiarity.
It's a big country. There's a lot of people in Russia, so they might not know everybody. Like not all Russians know everybody.
Maybe
but
not.
Close.
Maybe so. But I will say also the roster has her listed as number 9. 9, and I
like wearing the number 9.
Yes. I do not know if I've ever seen a number 9 on a defender.
Yeah, you're much better at numbers than I am.
Honestly, 9 is like a sacred number in the pantheon of hockey for scorers, and even like for hockey, soccer as well. Like it's like 9 is like goals, and to see it on a defender, I don't know. Yeah, exactly. It's gonna trip me up for sure.
And they're giving her a single digit number. Maybe that's an inclination that she's going to be from day one a regular player on the blue line. The other member of this defensive core from Czechia, Adela Framova, she's an 07 birth year, so 18, 19, depending on her actual birth date. 5'10", so she's got some size. Again, that's short in terms of like men's hockey, but on the women's side, I think she's the third tallest on roster. So, and she's got U18 experience back in 2025, played U18s for Czechia. So those two prospects, the two European prospects, I think just based on their experience and their international play at the U18s are especially intriguing prospects. With Iverson and Mitchell as well, I'm expecting at least to see some action from them. That gives us 9 players. Talking about 9. That's 9 defenders in the defensive core unit. And we talked about the men with getting Sharpe and Frazer to join the fold. That brought their defensive core to 8, which is about what you want. Sometimes it's not too bad to have some insurance there with a 9th member. I could cycle someone in. It's more common in the women's game to have like a rover, someone that plays both defense and forward. We've seen that. I mentioned Sydney Bryant had that role. Marie Moran has had that role in the last couple of years.
Hemlerova.
Perhaps there's Hemlerova. Yeah, great example there. So it's possible that we see maybe 1 or 2 of these players maybe try their hand at forward at some point. But in terms of you're looking at defensive pairings, just kind of refreshing my memory from like looking at line pairings, line charts from last season. Like none of the returning players, from what I could gather, it's not like we're preserving any pairings from last year, because Urele would play with Wolf, or Pion would play with Bryant, or Lamb would play with Pion or Bulger. Like it's not like Urele and Bulger were a defensive pairing through all of last year. So all of these players are going to have to kind of gain some chemistry, in training camp and going through the season here to find some pairings that click. And I'm just looking at like from an experience and size standpoint. Like I said, like I'm thinking like Urele Thompson is like a pairing I could see. They're both upperclassmen. I think they're maybe the 2 best skilled players. Like I haven't seen Thompson like in action play. She's more of like someone I'm seeing on paper and really liking, and her track record at Northeastern is impressive. You could see like a Pion Bulger pairing as well. I'm just, again, spitballing more than anything. You can have these European combinations, players like Tarkanainen, Sviridova. Again, I don't want to repeat these names back to back too often because I'm going to trip over them, especially 3 beers in. But, Urele, I mean, as we know with Yellow and I mean, even Idalski before, fair amount of European presence here. And sometimes those types of players can click playing in the international hockey context. So I'm excited to see what this unit will do, like, and how it's going to shake out, because what I'm sort of throwing up there in terms of like, I'm thinking maybe Urele and Thompson has like an opening face-off first game of the season pairing. That could be way off. Like the end of the year, that could have been totally different. Who knows? Urele could get hurt and not play, during the season. Like, who knows? That's the beauty of the season, is how it starts is not necessarily how it's going to end. But I do see some talent on this defensive roster. Anything you'd like to add? And like, who's like your dark horse among this unit? Who are you really looking to take a step up this year? Well,
I mean, first off, you're talking about the pronunciation of the names, and I guess I don't know 100% for Maxon, and I apologize. I probably should actually reach out to him if he's still going to be doing the play-by-play on Big Ten Plus for the women's team. But if so, he's going to have his hands full. So
we had the whole like Kirko thing. Remember, was it Kirko and not Kariko? Like that's gonna screw us up too.
Yeah.
So yeah. Apologies.
Already we're bad at this. So obviously I talked about it a little bit on the men's side. Hockey's hockey. So I'm going to talk about it on the women's side. I'm going to look at right-handed defenders, and we've got two.
Right.
So
similar theme with the forwards as well. A shortage of righty shots.
Yep. Sirodova and Thompson are going to be our right-handed shots, which makes me think Thompson, with the experience as well, is going to be going to be one pairing on that side. So it's I'm really excited to see her, but at the same time, what I'm a little bit worried about is when it comes to the power play. Who are we going to be looking at as quarterbacking that power play? Just looking at, the season here, the stats from last season, some of the top players, obviously from an offensive standpoint, are no longer on the team. And I had big expectations for Lamb. And now that, we lost her, RIP to the transfer portal, it's, that job is wide open. So as a fan, that makes me, a little bit worried. But as a player, I would imagine that all these defenders are looking at that power play one slot and thinking, hey, this is going to be my chance to be able to feed Sorial or a Sunderland or a Holloway in front of the net, So it's, kind of an interesting situation. Or if this, maybe Thompson does get power play time here when I can't imagine she did at Northeastern. So I don't know. I think that's going to be kind of an interesting kind of wrinkle when it comes to, here I am talking about the defenders and, hey, who can produce on offense. But it's definitely an aspect of the game that I'm really, really interested in, because I don't know if Bulger's that person. Now I think she has, very capable when it comes to that. And I believe she did get some power play time last season. So maybe she's a presumptive kind of go-to when it comes to it. But it's kind of an interesting wrinkle that we're going to see how these lines kind of shape up early in the season.
Uriel is the one for me that I would like to see emerge as a power play quarterback. I mean, she's had glimpses. I mean, was it a 5-point? It was either the first game or the first weekend of last season. And then again, that was Lindenwood. That was the cupcake that you're able to run the score up on a little bit. But even in her freshman year, the second half of her freshman year, I think that she had a 2-goal game with both on the power play. I'm thinking against Bemidji. I think she struggles with consistency, and it might be one of these like make or break seasons for her, where she can really emerge as a consistent contributor, especially on that power play unit for the Huskies.
Urela is, I think, one of our more complete defenders. But like you said,
that's why I'm putting her on number one pairing to start the
season. And I can see that, but like you said, it's, looking at last year, she had 5 points against Lindenwood. She finished the season with 9.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's
some of that was at the Olympics, right? So I don't think she played a full season, but
true.
She did go into a stall. And especially against the top end talent, she was getting passed by Lamb, who's a freshman herself. So, and you'd like to think too, like how this defensive unit would look with Lamb as a part of this.
I know. I
mean, Clarkson is the beneficiary of our loss in this regard.
I mean, this might be, maybe I can say this because I'm a couple of drinks in, but like as far as like impacts from portal losses, I think Lamb might hurt more than a Hall or Bernovic on the men's side. I mean,
he might not be. I don't think that's crazy, actually.
I mean, when it comes to like the aspect of the team and what they meant to the team, and I don't want to dwell that much on past players, especially they're dead to me now. But looking at, Brnovic obviously put up the goals, put up the points, had the one-timer, not the best defensively. Struggled with that. Obviously, Barrett Hall went the last 10 games without a point or without a goal. So he struggled down the stretch. But Lamb there, consistent, was able to shut down some of the best players in college hockey, really. So it's, as far as the makeup of the team, and, if you want to use that criteria for most valuable player to a team, Lamb departing this defensive core is really going to hurt. Now, it's up to these players here to really step up here this season.
Yeah, 15 points from Lamb and 9 in the second half.
Yeah.
4 of her 6 goals. She had 3 goals against Wisconsin. She had another goal against the Gophers. So it's not like she's like Urilla just stacking them up against the Lindenwoods of the world. It was a big loss in terms of, you'd like to think like Hall or Brnovic probably be top line players on the men's team. You'd also like to think that Lamb would be a top pairing defender for the
100% she will be. Yeah.
Maybe you don't get Thompson with that calculus, and Thompson too, you might think another reason you might want to think that she's going to be like top pairing and maybe get some power play opportunities is to get her out of a situation like Northeastern. You might have had to promise her those kind of commitments with St. Cloud State, because it's nice to win 28 games or whatever it was that Northeastern did and make a trip to the Frozen Four, but kind of squeezed on that roster into second or third pairing. You give her the opportunity to say, you'll take the ice for opening puck draw for our season as a top defender, and you're going to get bulk minutes on special teams as well. That might have been what it takes to get a player like that out of Hockey East and getting into the WCHA. So I'm interested, especially to see how she makes the transition into this conference and onto this team, where I think she's going to take a center stage on the defensive core. So it's a unit with a lot of question marks, but I think there's room for some surprises and room for improvement from some players that we've already seen some promise, some flashes of promise in their previous Husky career. Let's finish with the forwards. Fair amount of returners. I got 14 forwards here listed, and 10 of those are returning from last year. So this is a little bit different from the men's team, where again, so much turnover. But, it starts at the top, where you've really got your star players. Alice Sorial, Sophiana Sunderland, Maria Michaelian. I would even put Laura Zimmerman maybe in that top echelon, as she really emerged last season, especially emerging as a center, which is a position that she really grew into as someone who had never played the position. Mm-hmm. And learned it on the fly, and I thought learned it to a proficiency that going forward, I was kind of like scribbling on line charts, like thinking about Zimmerman, how she really grew into that position. Maybe a second line center right underneath Sunderland, and if she can perform something like what she did last season and build on that, I think that's a player that, again, at her best, she's going to sneak into that top 4, as I mentioned here, putting in that same category, Sorial, Sunderland, Michaelian. Continuing on with the returners, Juliana Labbe, who we saw some good signs from last year as a freshman. She'll be a sophomore this year. Peyton Holloway, Riley Mustinen, Peyton Remick, Marie Moran, who I mentioned earlier, Myra Kruger. So those are your 10 returners. Of those 10, 3 of them are going to be seniors. 4, Sorial, Sunderland, Zimmerman, and Holloway. You're looking at leadership and key positions. I mean, we've got Sunderland, Zimmerman, and Holloway are all going to be, I would assume, to be centers. the majority of the season this year. So you really build down the middle when it comes to your forwards, and you build down the middle with experience as well. So you got seniors at the center position. Basically, your top 3 centers are going to be seniors. I think that's a good sign for the Huskies. And then you're mixing in the youth as well. We had so many freshmen last year. Saw a lot of good things from Marie McCallion. Sniper position. Someone who saved some of her best work, I think, against the cream of the crop. Mm-hmm. Just remember McCallion's 2-goal performance against Wisconsin.
Yep.
In that 4-4 tie from last year. She's not someone who just saves it for the St. Thomas games and the Bemidji games. Like, in some ways, McCallion's best performances were against the best teams in the WCHA. I'm really excited to see what she does in year 2. And especially too, because like she wasn't on I think one of the biggest things with McCallion, and I want to see what you think about this too, in terms of like who you're pairing her with, like what line mates for her. Because I don't think that there was a set center that she was always with. I think there's special team situations where we're going to want to stack it with Sorial, Sunderland, McCallion on a power play situation, but even strength, I think a lot of times it was more so Zimmerman and McCallion that were paired together. I think she's an X factor because I think I'll say it here. I mean, maybe this is a hot take because I think Sorial led the team in points last year, 29. That was the most that any Husky had in almost 10 years in a single season point output. Sunderland or Sorial might be your best bets for point scorers. I'm going to go with goal scorer, leading goal scorer. I'll say it's going to be McCallion. But it just depends on how many of those are going to come on the power play. But then who is she going to be mostly paired with on 5-on-5? Do you have any insight on that? Like, and do you think I'm crazy in terms of you think that McCallion can threaten to lead this team in goal scoring this coming season?
It's tough. Because when I'm looking at kind of the line makeup of anything, when I think of like McCallion, who do I want with her? Now I want either a physical presence, so somebody who can create space for her, which I think Zimmerman kind of fits that mold, which was on that line quite a bit. Or I want somebody with the vision and the passing, which I think is Sorial, right? So McCallion, I think, normally plays on the left. Sorial plays on the right. So that makes sense to put them together. Now, would that hurt Sunderland? Now, if Sorial and Sunderland are split up, we saw how well those two are paired together. Yeah. I kind of harken back to Motzko when he said that you really try to find pairs and try to find who the best is to kind of slot in with that for that third person. I worry about what our depth is going to look like if we did load up with a McCallion and Zimmerman Sorial line. Like, who plays with Sunderland then? I could see a LeBay Sunderland, and then who's on the right side? Like, and that's where it's like, I don't know who it was. Like Farrell was usually on the right side there, but obviously she's gone. Jackal's gone.
Part of this is because you don't have many right-handed shots.
No,
and you're right.
Exactly.
That Sorial played a lot of right wing last year. She is a lefty shot, and that's not uncommon for a lefty shot to play the right wing. But you'd feel like it'd be ideal if you've got someone on the right hand with a right hand shot that can naturally feed into one of these lines. It seems like there's a lot of good pairings, but not maybe a full threesome among these forwards that at least have a track record of clicking at St. Cloud State. Like we've talked about, like McCallion, Zimmerman, Sorial, and Sunderland. I thought last year, especially early in the season, there was some good chemistry with Holloway and LeBay, which I'd like to see a little bit more of this year. We've got the Rozo connection. We've talked about Peyton Remick. So Lily Erickson, as I mentioned, transferred to Franklin Pierce. They played together on the same line in Rozo with a third member of that line Jasmine Hubda. I haven't gotten to the freshman yet, but I'll get to her first because Hubda is coming in this season into the fold to the Huskies. I'd like to see like a Hubda Remick reunion because they put up monster numbers. That would have been in the 24-25 season for a good Roseau team at the high school level. That could be some chemistry to see if maybe you got something from Gilasuo's perspective. See what they can maybe develop as two young players. So, but like I said, I've got a lot of twosomes that I like seeing together, but I'm not sure if I see like a full cohesive line other than, like I said, I love the idea of Sorial, Sunderland, and McKalian on the power play. But in terms of like even strength, I'm not sure if I see like what's like my best my best top three on 5-on-5.
Yeah. And that's going to be kind of interesting to watch where it goes throughout the season because, you know, I think the offense, like you said, I don't think it's a surprise to say McKalian is going to lead the team in goals. Now, obviously, Sunderland is right there too. She did lead the team. I believe she led the team in goals last year, right?
Yeah.
And she was injured.
Yeah, she had 16 and McKalian had 13, and they both played in 36 games.
Oh, they both played in 36 games. I thought she was injured for a little bit. I talked to her about her injury. Why?
She had that. It was.
I think she drunk at a hockey game once when I ran into her and just talked about. She probably knows me as this random drunk guy that just went up and talked to her about her injury.
I think she was fighting through some stuff in the second half last year. I think because
that's right.
Yeah, there was one game that she missed. It was towards the end of the season, and you could tell it's not maybe quite the Spencer Meier thing where Meier was really gutting through his senior season, but you could tell that Sunderland certainly was not close to 100% towards the end of last season as well.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm really excited to see what step LeBay is going to make this year. And I do find it interesting if you have kind of a hard grinded out like a Zimmerman LeBay combination. I find that intriguing, and maybe you go with that if you're down by one, in 10 minutes to go in the third, you put a Sunderland, Sorial, McKalian, like you really load up those top two lines, and then hopefully, you get some of these freshmen kind of coming in and stepping up to have a season like McKalian and did too. So we'll kind of see what they have kind of in the hopper for freshmen.
Yeah, let's mention those freshmen. So I mentioned Jasmine Hubda from Roseau. I think she heads this group. We've got 4 freshmen coming in this season. Hubda, an 07 birth year. Also an 07 birth year and a righty shot. Again, not many of those. Sophie Olsen, she played at Hill Murray to good results, a good Hill Murray team, and right kind of close by White Bear. Men's team's got plenty of White Bear alums on their roster. Women's team has one in Maddie Lee, another right-handed shot. Again, I only mentioned the right-handed shots because we've only got 5 of them among these forwards. Even the St. Cloud State website has Peyton Remick listed as a lefty shot. I had to go I looked at some video. She is a righty shot. So I had to add her into that mix. But still, just 5 of the 14 forwards, righty shots. And none of your star players. They're all lefty shots, really. I mean, it's the Sorial, Sunderland, McKalian, Zimmerman. They're all lefty shots. So that might be another sort of wrinkle in this roster. What do you do? How do you assemble a great line?
I don't know. I feel just from what I feel from when it comes to righty and lefty, I feel it matters a little bit less when it comes to forwards. That's probably fair. Defense, I think it makes a bigger aspect because when you're ringing around the boards or whatnot, it's easier to pick up pucks from on your forehand off the boards than it is from your backhand. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of when I love a right-handed defenseman, especially a puck moving one, is that, you're ringing around the boards, you're able to kind of keep it in the zone, or you're able to kind of dig it out in the corner. And turn it up ice or, through the boards. Because if you're on your offhand on a righty on playing the left side or a lefty on the right side of the defense, when you're picking up from the boards, you have to turn inside versus up the boards, and that can create some kind of turnovers and whatnot. So, but as far as, offense goes, there is some kind of pluses when it comes to playing on your offhand, because your sticks are in the middle. You be able to shoot, you have a better angle shooting, as a righty on your left-hand side. Now, that all comes into effect of, maybe it isn't as important, but it is still kind of a wrinkle when it comes to how you're setting up one-timers or transitions or odd man rushes, and that's where knowing your teammates and line mates on who's a righty and who's a lefty kind of is incredibly important. So it's, that's where, I'm looking for some players, Maya Kruger is one that, I really am looking forward to kind of taking a big step. Kind of got some spot starts here last season, but, I think this is kind of a make or break season for her if she's going to get some major time, on the ice. Remick has, kind of played, like you said, both positions. Will kind of play anywhere. But, I'm kind of interested to see where she's going to end up throughout the season. I mean, some of the freshmen coming in, if you want to go through some of the other ones that we've got coming in, but it'll be kind of really interesting to see where they all fit.
Yeah. The only other freshman that I haven't mentioned yet is Taylor Lamabe. Again, that might be way off. Lamabe. From Alberta.
I'm going to go with Lamabe.
And we've already got Julianne LeBay, so it's going to be that'll be a Nick Maxon problem. Don't have them on the same line because that would cause problems for the announcer. But
not for us.
Sydney Wolf has her listed on her spreadsheet as a defender, but from what I researched, it looks like she is a forward. And that makes the numbers better. At this, you got 14 forwards, 9D. Those numbers check out generally. And with the 3 goalies, that means that adds up to 26. Which again, that would indicate if you are a house settlement opter inner, then that would put you at your max at the max roster's capability. So of these. First of all, are you a righty shot?
Yep.
Can you be a lefty shot but be right-handed?
That's actually preferred, if that makes sense.
Because
here's for a while the whole aspect of righty versus lefty was, your dominant hand low. But over the last couple of, I would say years, but more probably at this point, decades, you want your dominant hand up high because that's where your stick handling actually comes through. So your dominant hand. So for most people, that's why you see so many lefties, they're dominantly right-handed. However, I'm dominantly left-handed. So I actually kind of lucked into the right position, but it's how you're taught too. So how you're taught the right way. And before, decades ago, mostly you were right-handed because you were taught right-handed because you had to be right-handed. You have to, how you swing a golf club and how you swing a hockey stick has to be the same. But now it's kind of changed a little bit to where your dominant hand is your high hand. And that's why you see so many lefties, because most people are right-hand dominant. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
okay.
It does. I mean, I was a righty shot and I'm right-handed. I played at a high level at Stephen Adams in Hastings. So, but I'm just looking at this roster. We got, for my count, 7 of the forward/D. I didn't count the goalies in this. Out of the 23 skaters, we've got 7 righty shots, which isn't it 10% of the population is left-handed? So it seems out of whack. But I do think, my hunch was that, yes, someone who writes right-handed could be a lefty shot.
Yeah.
And that sounds like that is the case. It's just it's natural evolution, and it's sports engineering. We just make someone a lefty shot because you're going to be more marketable as a lefty shot. It all makes sense.
Well, also it kind of goes through because like it also makes sense. Also, like when I played hockey back in my day, even now at old timer hockey, like I can't shoot 5-hole, and I actually did a little bit of research on it, and like it's actually more like right-handers have a tougher time shooting 5-hole because you're mostly facing a left-handed catching goalie, and how they hold their stick. It's the angle is a lot easier for a lefty to shoot 5-hole than it is a righty. So it all goes into some kind of weird science, but it actually just made me feel better that I can never shoot 5-hole.
Yep.
That's what it comes
It's just science. Yeah.
to.
Don't blame it on your talent or lack thereof.
Nope. It's science.
Just science, and
science
genetics.
is the reason, not me, not my skill. It's not a skill issue. That's for sure.
Yeah, so I'm intrigued.
Eric
by
Zamora, who's seen me play hockey, is like, yeah, that's not the reason why, buddy.
It's close, but it's not quite.
So
close.
what I do now, I talk about hockey. What is it? If you can't do, teach. Is that the?
If you can't,
if you can't do, start
gym.
a podcast.
Correct.
That's
yes.
what it comes down to.
Yeah, I'm interested in these in this group of freshmen, and particularly Hovda. I think she's the most intriguing of these 4 names of the freshman forwards. I'm especially also intrigued by. So I mentioned Sunderland, Zimmerman, Holloway as being kind of my 1, 2, 3 on the depth chart among centers. And again, Zimmerman, this is a relatively new position for her. I don't know if she's necessarily locked in there as a center. If there can be some, one of these underclassmen can emerge, I can see there being a possibility that Zimmerman can move back to a wing. What we saw last year was there was always the one consistency among the depth chart was that it was always in flux. I mean, even Sunderland and Sorial were broken up at certain points during the season. So I don't think anything is really frozen in stone here. But in particular, if I'm looking at those 3 as my top 3 centers, I'm interested in who's going to be that 4th center. We saw Marie Moran, who I mentioned had played some defense earlier in her career, kind of struggled to find a solid position or like where her best fit was. I actually thought the second half of last year as a center, I thought she was pretty solid, actually. And if she's going to be like a 4th line center, I think you can find worse. There's worse options than Moran. As like a 4th line center. And again, she's one of these right-handed shots. Because of that, maybe she'll be able to get some higher end top 6 minutes in a right-handed in a right wing position opportunity as well. So she's kind of another wild card. She can go a lot of different positions on the ice. But so yeah, who's going to be that 4th center is a question mark, and I think an interesting kind of positional battle, and just how these freshmen are going to figure into the action. We saw Erickson, left via the transfer portal last year. Strouts, same way, didn't really get much action last year. A lot of that I think had to do with these Idalski recruits. Then the coaching change happens pretty late in the offseason last year. They might have been stuck in a scenario where they just didn't click with the coaching staff. As Yellow goes forward here, this is her team now, more so than it was last year. And there might be some more buy-in from at least these freshmen. Hovda, I believe, still would have committed under Idalski, and I mentioned Mitchell did for sure. So there's still going to be some overlap there, but I do think that the chemistry from Yellow down to the players, and especially the ones that she's actually bringing in as recruits, I think that's going to pay dividends here. Hopefully it does this year as we get some of these young players in particular to gain some chemistry. Any final thoughts? I mean, how you think I did here with kind of a quick rundown of all the what we think of as what's going to be the 26-person roster for this Huskies team? And what's just your general kind of outlook? It's July. We've still got a couple of months until games start. But, how are we feeling at this very early stage about the 26-27 Huskies?
I mean, the crazy thing about it is it's mid-September is when things start up. Like it's
6 weeks.
Yeah.
6-7 weeks.
We're really clipping along here. I will say, first off, I think you did an amazing job. Thank you for this.
Except the pronunciations. I know I didn't nail that.
But I think also we talked about this a little bit last year too, but it's so tough when it comes to, I can get a good basis looking at the men's roster, looking at the men's players and just being like, okay, this is the type of player that they are. They've got write-ups, they've got et cetera, et cetera. That's where, the women's game, it's a lot tougher. I've got stat sheets. I don't know what type of league they're playing in. And, maybe I could do a little bit more digging when it comes to it, but also, trying to figure that out and siphon through what all of it means. It's incredibly tough. Right. And we're not going to know until they get here and we can kind of see what they can do. But I'm going to trust this coaching staff, and I am really excited to see kind of how this season is going to take place and, kind of see the vision for Yellow Suo and what she expects for this team to kind of take shape. Obviously you can look at the record and say that we took a step backwards from Idalski, but the team was, a little bit more interesting and more fun to watch. When it comes to that aspect. So it's, I'm excited to see what they can do and what these players can do on the ice. So I'll be there watching. I plan to go to the MAC. Like you said, it's within walking distance for me.
Correct.
Although walkability in St. Cloud isn't the best. So it doesn't even have a clear path, which it really should. I've got a clear path to Apollo. Just extend the stupid walking path 4 more blocks and I'd be at the MAC. It makes no sense, but that's neither here nor there. But I do wonder again, if it's at the MAC, they're selling beer there, and if it's Pantown, they've got. I think I play my old timer hockey league. I think one of the guys that owns Pantown or one of the higher ups there. I'm gonna see if they're gonna be there at the women's game. I can. They're definitely there for the Norseman game, so I've been there for that. So hopefully they're there for that opener again for the women's team. I'd love to partake in a few beverages while I'm there and stumble home in a non-walkable area.
Less than 2 months.
Yeah.
It's be close to summer hockey. That exhibition game will be in the summer, technically. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty of women's NCAA hockey, because you get a couple of summer games that actually count in the standings. The Bemidji exhibition game won't, obviously, but we get to look forward to that. So that's enough for this month. We've got a show. These are the off-season shows. We just do them once a month. In the season, we'll do them every week. And that'll start again sooner than we think.
Yeah.
It's 7 months or so till we'll have to do a women's preview show right before that to preview that UConn series. But we'll have one in August. We don't know when. We've kind of been doing our monthly shows the last couple of months, just at the very tail end of the month. We're sneaking them in at the end of the month.
I mean, there was a reason for this one. I mean.
Well, we said at the start, there's been news, it's good that we're kept occupied by that news. It's better to not have to tap dance around. We could do that. Trust us. We can tap dance with the best of them.
I mean, Fred Astaire was pretty good, but
we always do open it up to questions. Did we have any questions?
We had a couple questions. Obviously, Dan Jacobson did ask if he's crazy for going to Ireland and Switzerland for hockey this season. So
and we had to think about this. We had to decipher the reference because Duluth's playing in the Friendship 4 over Thanksgiving in Belfast. The men's team is the women's team. I think the Duluth women's team played there last year in the Frozen or Friendship Four.
They got swept, I believe, in that too, right?
They did. I was surprised. Yeah, it was kind of surprising. And then we did piece that together because Sandlin was named as an assistant coach on the USA Select team or whatever they're calling it, the NCAA
US Collegiate Selects.
Yeah, it's like the older players, they wouldn't be eligible for the U20s, but it's like the college all-star team 20 and above, basically, or at least the ones that don't make the U20s, because it's going on around the same time at the Spengler Cup. Assistant coach, though, Sandlin, to Mike Souza, the UNH coach, who's taking the head job there, which is a little surprising. It's Souza, who's been there for like 10 years to not much success, hasn't made a tournament at the University of No Hardware. Whereas Sandlin, who's won how many cheesy national titles, and Casey Jones,
many,
high on cocaine, riding that train. Casey Jones, all from Cornell, with a more decorated coaching resume as well than Mike Souza. I don't know who lost the poker bet there, but maybe that. So Dan's going to the Spengler Cup then to watch the assistant coach,
I guess,
for Duluth. Hey, I mean, if you
unless we're missing something else.
It looked like a cute town there in Davos.
It looked like a lot of fun. It did look like a lot of fun, and cool arena too.
So yeah, well, he's going to be clocking in his frequent flyer miles.
That's right. You hear Casey Jones and you hear Grateful Dead,
and you're probably the Teenage Mutant Ninja
Turtles. Yep.
That's just me and you. You know, it's just the generation gap. That's what you get when I'm a year younger than you and making the older references. That's what the show
I think Turtles are probably a bigger part of my childhood, I would guess. Or I wasn't a Deadhead. Actually, that's more likely. Maybe I just need to listen to more.
Unfortunately, I probably would say I was a bigger fan of the Dead than I was TMNT. But again, it's different life experiences, I suppose. Don't do drugs, kids. Any other questions?
Yeah, Carson did ask prediction on opening night lines. So do you want to get into a line prediction?
We kind of did that with the women's team.
I've got line 1 for the men's.
Hit me.
Rode, Ernest, and Thorson.
Think that's a good bet. What's your defensive pairing?
I guess, yeah. Ooh, defense. I didn't even think of who I'm gonna have on defense.
God, I've got to scramble my brain. Who do we even got on defense?
Right.
That was last month's show where we're doing our defensive, or doing our.
I mean, am I gonna put? I mean, I would guess a Napier and.
Do you go
know.
Veterans?
McLaughlin, I guess.
Do you go Bufflin, Napier?
Oh man,
Bufflin,
I got to think of this. Yeah.
Give me like Stevenson, Oljanski's.
Okay.
Go with both freshmen.
That's a pick.
It's probably not going. You're going to have one. You're probably going to have an upper class, if not two. At least one upper class.
That's why I'm thinking like a McLaughlin Napier. But I mean, you probably want to split those two out. And I actually don't know if they're right or left-handed. So I got to even look at that even more.
I wonder if Bufflin and Belial played together last year with the Huskies, if they ever had the same ice time. I kind of doubt it. Those are only
Belial
two
probably
Huskies.
as the extra defenseman and Bufflin on the third pairing. I bet there were instances where they were on the ice, but I wouldn't say they were ever a pairing.
It's kind of like what we're talking about the women's side, where none of these defenders played with each other last year.
Mm-hmm.
If Bufflin and Belial played on the same pairing, find me the video on that, because I'd kind of be surprised. I mean, Bufflin was kind of hurt part of the year, and Belial only played 15 games. So
yeah,
if they did overlap, it would kind of surprise me. So it's similar to the women, where it's like we might just have to find out in training camp and how they're practicing together, who's clicking.
I mean,
between pairings.
Spoiler alert for my men's preview show, but yeah, defense is going to be a massive question mark. I don't think that's a shock anywhere, but that's going to be and like I said, I think there's talent here, so I'm not going to say it's going to be terrible, but what to expect, I have no idea.
Right now, so we got eight defensemen, 4 of them freshmen. I'll put it to this way: what's your chance of opening puck drop pairing being a freshman among those 2 defensive partners? So one of Stevenson, Oljanski, Sharpe, or Frazer being an opening face-off starting defenseman.
Oh, I think one of those 4 being a starting, I would say that's 90%. I think that's a huge possibility because you would want a younger paired with an older. I mean, I think that makes the most sense. Yeah. That's kind of like you wanted your oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher this one. But you wanted your Prochnow as a freshman with who was a senior on that squad, or an upperclassman.
Who was talking like 11, 12, somewhere in that range?
I
let's just say Raboyne, just for the sake of argument.
Okay.
I know what you're going.
Yeah,
exactly. You want to have someone experienced. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's important, especially on the defensive side, to have kind of that younger, older dynamic. Because again, this is, obviously you want to win in the short term, but I think you have to look at this as a couple of years in the making here, especially with this team. So I feel that, having that kind of, young, old kind of combination is going to do some well. So I do think you're going to have your best upperclassmen and your best, who you foresee as a captain in 2 to 3 years, that's going to be your starting defensive core.
Maybe that's what Meier is going to be looking at. That's like his job, is scoping out who's going to be future captains, because he's got some experience in that category. Okay. Unlike, when we're talking about
Prochnow was maybe a bad example, because Prochnow defense, there was only one senior, and that was Zapkowicz, and I don't think they were paired together.
What was his first year? Would it have been 11, 12?
11, 12.
I think Raboyne he'd been 9, 10 may have been his last season.
Yeah.
It was a couple of years before, but yeah, I like the idea of having one one old, one experienced, one raw.
I'm gonna hate that. I'm gonna hate asking this question. What year was it, Ferris F in State?
That was 15, 16.
Is that 15, 16? Okay, so Prochnow was the senior on that.
He was not on that team.
Oh, no. I selected 14, 15. Oops. 15, 16. There we go. Okay. Oh, okay. I was thinking of Prow and Schultz.
Perfect.
Okay, that's what I was thinking of. Second time I forgot about Jimmy Schultz. Look at me. God, just striking out.
I mean,
because I'm pretty sure they were paired together.
I wonder if talking about Schultz and Meier.
Because Schultz messed up the hip check that led to the Ferris State goal in 8 seconds.
Don't need to remind me.
Yeah. So
I'm wondering if Schultz and Meier ever paired up in 18, 19. That would have been Meier's first year and Schultz last year at St. Cloud. I mentioned those are the 2 guys that had 3-year letter wearers. So I wonder if they ever
it wouldn't surprise me
in that year. And just talking about like the women's side, when we're talking like Tristan Thompson, just I think we agreed, just that makes sense of her being top pairing. I don't think there was one member of the defensive core on the men's team that stands out as like an obvious top pairing. Like Oljanski's is probably the one that intrigues me the most among the D. Maybe Stevenson. I think Oljanski's is slightly more intriguing, but both freshmen, Oljanski's and Stevenson. So it's hard to like. But then again, I think about last year. Like, who was their best defenseman last year? It was Tanner Hendricks, and even though he only played a handful of games, he was the most dynamic, talented defenseman they had last year. So it would not shock me if one of these 4 freshmen that we've mentioned, if they emerge at the end of the season as, maybe if not the best objectively, but at least, maybe my or your favorite defenseman is someone of these freshmen D that we're talking about. But we're at 2.5 hours. We've babbled long enough. Again, maybe this one is like more like 3 shows in one.
No kidding.
But we like to pack it in for the summer shows. And apparently we're making great numbers on these summer shows according to our analytics.
Great is relative. It's all relative. Are we punting
thoughts?
Rule changes then? Is what you're saying?
We can pump. You never even brought that up, so you don't do that. You don't bring up a new topic 2 hours and 30 minutes in.
2 hours
to the show.
and 30 some minutes. In.
We'll
I can't just bring up the stupidity of the rule changes that are coming in. I suppose that's another 20 plus minutes.
I think we're gonna have to probably scratch for.
I don't know. I'm rolling. I'm 3 drinks in, or maybe even 4 or 5, and I've got an espresso martini in me, so I'm ready to go.
There's only one whiskey podcast, and that's been lost to history. So there's no recreation of that.
Okay. Next time I'll have August podcast. I'll actually have a George Thorogood. I'll actually have a bourbon scotch,
and maybe we'll have some details about the Mount Rushmore, because we want to have that to be a thing. If we'll do it next show, or we'll talk about doing it maybe for a September show, we still want to have that. Like, what's your Mount Rushmore for St. Cloud State hockey? Because I think that's a good summer topic. But there was usually the abyss of Husky hockey news, and I think we've reached most of it. At least we've got the rosters pretty much taken form. So anyway, you can follow us for more updates and what we can do with this August show. There'll be one. We just don't know what it'll be, but you can follow us.
Rule changes.
Where can people follow you?
At More Clappers, MOAR More Clappers. I am on X and Bluesky, although I don't post that much on Blue Sky, and I probably should post more in there. But I should probably post less on X, but it's is what it is. So, but yeah, follow me there. And then obviously you're listening to this podcast, so Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube. We got a YouTube comment.
Really?
Yeah, we did. And the YouTube comment actually said, "I know you don't read the Spotify comments, so I guess we might have Spotify comments I need to read."
So it wasn't like a bot either.
No, it was actually a real person. They were asking for like a where are they now of the people in the portal and whatnot. So I actually pointed them over to Sydney Wolf's spreadsheet, and I was like, "Hey, thanks for listening, but here's." There's where everybody kind of ended up, and I think Ocean Wallace is the only one I don't think has found a home, and at least at that point.
I don't believe he did. His brother did. His brother landed somewhere, but I don't think Ocean Wallace did. You can follow me, Andrew, at Andrew SCSUHHP on X, Cloud Coverage Hockey at Substack.com. Cloud Coverage Hockey, just search for it in Google, you'll find it. And we
might be renaming this podcast to the Cloud Coverage Podcast.
We'll talk about that. A Huskies Hockey Podcast at gmail.com. That's our email. We did get
we
a
need to
very
change the
long
email,
email.
wouldn't we? Yeah.
I need to send you that email because we got a very, very, very long email from Luke, who submits a moniker, Common Man style, as Sherburne Hall alumni guy. Shout out to that. I'll send you this here. You might have to take 10 minutes to read it because it's a very lengthy email, but we appreciate it. And
so it was a good email. It wasn't just trash.
Very, 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 very good email.
Oh, nice.
Just based on length, you get an A+. And so good on you, Sherburne Hall alumni guy. But that'll do it for today's show. For Weldie and all of Husky Nation, go Huskies! Woo!